The mop handle cracked across the gunman's wrist, and the pistol went skidding under a black Mercedes. "Don't touch her." Daniel Carter, 35, single-father night janitor, a man nobody in that building could name, put himself between four armed men and the most powerful woman in the city. One of them laughed. Then he said something that stopped Daniel's heart cold. "Carter, you're early tonight." They knew his name. They knew his shift, which meant this wasn't an ambush on Victoria Hayes at all, and Daniel had just walked into the middle of something aimed at him. Tell me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe and stay with me because the truth doesn't come out until the end. 6 hours earlier, Daniel Carter was on his knees in a fourth-floor bathroom, scrubbing a smear of coffee off the base of a urinal, and a man in a $2,000 suit stepped over him like he was a crack in the sidewalk. "Sorry," Daniel said, sliding the bucket aside. The man didn't answer, didn't look. He was talking into his phone about somebody named Marcus and a wire transfer, and how the old man will sign whatever we put in front of him. Daniel kept scrubbing. He'd learned a long time ago that people said things in front of a janitor they'd never say in front of a person. It wasn't cruelty exactly. It was something worse. It was that his gray uniform did something to their eyes bent. The light around him made him furniture, made him not there. He'd been in that building 11 months, and he could count on one hand the number of employees who'd said his name out loud. The bathroom door swung shut. Daniel sat back on his heels and let out a breath. "Marcus," he said quietly to nobody. "Wire transfer." "Okay." He didn't know why he filed it away. He just did. He always had. His phone buzzed at 6:12. The screen said Emma, with a picture of a gap-toothed 7-year-old holding a plastic dinosaur like it was a trophy. "Hey, Bug." "Daddy, Mrs. Alvarez let me feed the fish." "Both fish. All the fish. There's 4. 4 fish is a lot of responsibility." "I know," Emma said, very serious. "One of them is mean." Daniel laughed, and it was the first time all day his face did anything at all. He leaned against the tile wall, and for about 90 seconds he wasn't a janitor in a tower full of people who looked through him. He was somebody's whole world. "Daddy." "Yeah." "Are you coming home before I fall asleep?" He closed his eyes. "I'm gonna try Bug." "That's what you said Tuesday." "I know." "And Wednesday." "Emma." "It's okay," she said in that voice kids use when it isn't. "Mrs. Alvarez says you work hard because you love me." Daniel pressed his thumb and forefinger into his eyes. "Mrs. Alvarez is a smart lady," he said. "Save me a dinosaur." "I'll save you the T-Rex." "That's the good one." "I know," Emma said, and hung up on him because she was 7 and 7-year-olds don't do goodbyes. Daniel stood there holding a dead phone in a bathroom that smelled like bleach, and thought the way he thought roughly 40 times a day. "Claire, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing all of it wrong." His wife had been gone 2 years and 4 months. Long enough that people had stopped asking. Not long enough that he'd stopped reaching for her side of the bed at 3 a.m. He picked up his bucket. The thing about the Hayes Technologies building at night was that it emptied out in layers. 6 o'clock, the assistants left. 7, the mid-level guys made a show of leaving loud jackets over shoulders, "Big day tomorrow, folks." 8, the ambitious ones lingered so somebody would see them lingering. By 9, the tower was a hollow glass bone with 3 lights on. One of those lights was always the 38th floor. Daniel pushed his cart out of the service elevator at 9:40, and there she was. Victoria Hayes, CEO, 41 years old. The woman whose face was on the cover of magazines Daniel saw at the checkout line and never bought. She was sitting on the floor, not at her desk, on the floor back, against the glass shoes off, surrounded by paper, like a kid doing a puzzle. Daniel stopped. "I can come back." She looked up. And here was the thing that made Victoria Hayes different from every other person in that building she saw him. "Daniel," she said. "No, come in, please." He wheeled the cart in about 4 feet and stopped again because there was paper everywhere. "Ma'am, I don't want to, Victoria. I don't want to move anything you need." "It's all garbage," she said. "That's the problem. Somebody's feeding me garbage and I can't figure out who's holding the spoon." Daniel didn't say anything. He started emptying the trash can by her desk. Victoria watched him. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How long have you worked here?" 11 months. "And in 11 months, how many people in this company have said thank you to you?" Daniel tied off the bag. "That's a strange question." "Humor me." He thought about it. He was an honest man, so he actually thought about it. 4, he said. "Guy in shipping, 2 of the security guys, and you." Something moved across her face. Daniel had seen that look before at Claire's funeral on the faces of people who suddenly understood something they'd rather not. 4, she repeated. "It's fine." "It's not fine." "Ma'am?" "Victoria. Victoria." Daniel set the bag down. "Look, I'm not the sad guy in the movie. I mop floors. My kid's got a roof. She's got a coat. She's got shoes that fit. Nobody has to say thank you for that. I'm not doing it for them." Victoria was quiet a second. "Then who are you doing it for?" Daniel almost said Claire. He didn't know why. He said, "My daughter." "How old, Guy?" 7. "What's her name?" And Daniel stopped mop in hand because in 11 months, nobody in that building had asked him that. "Emma," he said. "Emma." Victoria nodded slowly like she was filing it somewhere permanent. "Does Emma know her dad's the only person in this tower who's never lied to me?" Daniel gave a short laugh. "I've barely said 40 words to you." "Exactly," Victoria said. 40 words. Everybody else has said 40,000, and I trust yours more. She didn't tell him what was in the papers. Not that night. But she told him one thing, and later he'd think about it the way you think about a door you walked past that turned out to be a cliff. "Daniel." He was almost out. "Do you ever notice things in the building? At night?" He turned around. "Like what?" "Like anything." He considered lying. He was very tired and he wanted to go home to a T-Rex. 12th floor conference room, he said. "Somebody's been meeting there Tuesdays and Thursdays 10:45 at night. 4-5 guys. They put their phones in a bag on the table. Bag's got a zipper and a foil liner. I've seen those before they block signal." Victoria's face didn't change, but something behind it went very still. "Anything else?" "They keep the shades down, but they don't check the vents. There's a reflection in the vent housing on the west wall. I can see the whiteboard in it when I do the carpets." "What's on the whiteboard?" "A name," Daniel said. "Yours, with a line through it." The silence in that office went on for a long, long time. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Victoria finally said. Daniel looked at her. It wasn't a hard look. It was worse than that. It was patient. "Ma'am," he said. "Who do you think would have listened to the janitor?" He clocked out at 11:50 and drove 18 minutes to a duplex with a broken porch light, and Emma was asleep on the couch with the plastic T-Rex on his pillow. Mrs. Alvarez met him at the door with her purse already on her shoulder. "She waited till 10, she said. "I told her you'd come." "I know, thank you." "Daniel." The old woman stopped in the doorway. "You look like a man carrying a piano up a staircase." "I'm fine. That's what my husband said. Then he died at 51. She patted his arm hard enough to sting. "Eat something." He carried Emma to bed. She woke up halfway the way kids do, all warm and boneless. "Daddy, you came." "I always come." "You always come." She agreed and was asleep again before her head hit the pillow. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed a long time. He thought about a name on a whiteboard with a line through it, and he thought, "That's not my problem. I've got one job. One. Keep this kid's dad alive and employed." He believed that for about 20 hours. Tuesday, 10:38 p.m. Daniel had no business on the 12th floor. His route said 31 through 38, and Ray, the night supervisor, was the kind of man who'd write you up for breathing off schedule. He went to the 12th floor. He told himself it was the carpets. He'd been meaning to do the carpets. He pushed his cart out of the elevator, and the hallway was dark except for the bar of light under the conference room door and Daniel Carter, janitor, single father. A man whose entire life fit in a checking account with $1,100 in it, stood in that hallway and had a very clear conversation with himself. Turn around. Emma needs you, not in jail. Turn around, Danny. He started the vacuum. He worked his way down the hall, and when he got close enough, he angled his body so the vent housing on the west wall caught the room in it, warped and small like a fisheye lens. 5 men. The whiteboard. And this time, it didn't say a name. It said a date. Thursday's date. And under it, 2 words in blue marker. Parking level 3. Daniel's hands went cold on the vacuum handle. The door opened. He didn't stop vacuuming. That was the only thing that saved him. He didn't flinch, didn't look up, just kept dragging that machine back and forth like a man who'd been dragging it his whole life, because that's what furniture does. Furniture doesn't react. A voice said, "Hey." Daniel kept going. "Hey." He shut the vacuum off and looked up with a face he'd been practicing for 11 months. Tired. Empty. Harmless. "Sorry, sir, am I too loud?" The man in the doorway was maybe 50 silver at the temples, tie loosened. Daniel knew him from the elevator. Gerald Vance, Chief Financial Officer. Vance stared at him for 4 full seconds. "You're not usually on this floor." "Carpets, sir. Ray's got me on rotation." "Ray." Vance said the name like he was checking it against something. "What's your name?" And Daniel felt it, that thing in the base of the spine that older men learn to trust and younger men learn to ignore. "Don't tell him." "Dan," he said. "Dan what?" "Just Dan, sir." Another 4 seconds. "How long you been out here, Dan?" "About 10 minutes." "You hear anything?" Daniel let his face do exactly nothing. "Sir, I've got a machine that runs at 85 decibels. Some nights I can't hear my own phone." Vance smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man deciding right then that something wasn't worth the paperwork. "Do the other end of the hall," he said. "We're a little longer in here." "Yes, sir." The door closed. Daniel walked to the far end of that hallway on legs that had turned into wet rope, and when he got there he put both hands on the wall and breathed like a man who'd run up 12 flights. Parking level 3, Thursday. That's tomorrow. What? He didn't sleep. He lay on his back at 3 a.m. and had the argument with the ceiling. "You didn't hear anything. You saw a whiteboard and a vent. Tell somebody." "Tell who?" "Tell Ray. Tell security, the security that reports to the CFO, tell her." "And say what?" "Ma'am, I read your executive's handwriting in a reflection. They'll fire you Thursday morning, and then who feeds Emma?" He turned over. Claire would tell her. He lay very still. That was the thing about Claire. 2 years and 4 months in the ground, and she was still winning arguments. Claire who pulled over on the highway for a dog. Claire who gave their grocery money to a woman in the parking lot with a kid on her hip, and then made rice for a week and never once complained. Claire, who'd said to him the last real conversation they ever had in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and roses. "Danny, promise me something. Promise me you won't get small. You've got the biggest heart of any man I ever met, and this world's gonna try to make you keep it in a drawer." Daniel got out of bed at 4 a.m. and stood in the doorway of his daughter's room and watched her sleep, and he made the worst decision of his life. Thursday, 9:20 p.m. He caught Victoria in the elevator lobby on 38, and she was already moving coat on phone in hand, 4 people trailing her like ducklings. "Ms. Hayes." She stopped, turned. Her face changed. She looked genuinely glad, which somehow made it worse. "Daniel." "Can I—" He glanced at the ducklings. "Can I have a second?" One of the ducklings, a young guy with a tablet, actually laughed. "She's got a car downstairs, buddy. It's fine, Victoria said. Give me a minute. Victoria, the Anderson call. Give me a minute. They peeled off. Daniel waited until the doors closed on them. Don't go to the garage tonight. Victoria's eyebrows went up. What? Don't go to the parking level. Take the lobby, take a cab, take anything. Just not the garage. Daniel? Level 3 tonight. That's all I know. That's all I've got. It was on a whiteboard, and there was a date, and the date is today. She stared at him, and Daniel watched it happen. Watched the CEO in her come up like a wall. Watched the part of her that had been burned before, that had been handled before, that had spent 20 years being lied to by men who wanted something. Who told you to say this to me? Nobody told me, because this is very convenient. Her voice had gone flat and cold and terrible. 3 weeks before a board vote, my janitor corners me at the elevator with a warning he can't source, and I panic, and I don't show up, and I look unstable. Is that it? Daniel felt something in his chest crack. Ma'am? Who sent you? Nobody sent me. He said it louder than he'd said anything in 11 months, and it rang off the glass, and Victoria actually took a half step back. Daniel closed his eyes. Got himself back. When he spoke again, his voice was so quiet she had to lean in. Ms. Hayes, I make $19 an hour. I've got a 7-year-old at home who thinks I'm a superhero because I can reach the top shelf. If I'm wrong about this, I lose my job and my kid loses her house. If I'm right about this and I say nothing, I've got to look at her every morning knowing what I let happen. He opened his eyes. There's no version of this where I win. So ask yourself what I could possibly be getting out of standing here. The elevator dinged. Neither of them moved. Victoria Hayes looked at him, really looked the way she had that first night, and Daniel watched the wall come down about 2 inches. Level 3, she said. Level 3. You saw this? How? The vent. The vent. West wall. 12th floor conference room. The housing's polished aluminum. And if you're on the floor doing the carpet, you can see the whiteboard in it. He shrugged, helpless. I know how it sounds. Victoria was very still. Vance's meeting room, she said. I didn't say a name. You didn't have to. And then she did something that Daniel would think about for the rest of his life. She smiled, small, tired, almost apologetic. Daniel, I appreciate this. I do. But I've got a board that's watching me for one crack, and if I start rerouting my exits because of a reflection in an air vent, I hand them the crack myself. She put a hand on his arm, brief, warm reel. I have security in the garage. 2 men. I'll be fine. Ma'am, go home to Emma, Victoria said. That's an order from the CEO. The doors opened. She stepped in. Ms. Hayes. Good night, Daniel. The doors closed. He stood in that lobby for 11 seconds. He thought about the $1,100 in his checking account. He thought about Emma's coat, which still fit, but wouldn't by January. He thought about Claire in a hospital bed saying, "Don't get small." And then Daniel Carter did something no reasonable man would do. He took the service stairs down 38 floors 3 at a time, hands skidding on the rail lungs on fire. And every single flight, there was a voice in his head screaming, "You have a daughter! You have a daughter! You have a daughter!" And another voice quieter. Claire's voice saying, "So did somebody else's father." And he showed up anyway. He hit level 3 at a dead sprint. 10. The first thing he noticed was the wrong thing. Not the men. The silence. Level 3 had a security desk. Level 3 always had a guy in a blue shirt at that desk with a little TV playing baseball. The desk was empty. The little TV was still on, murmuring to nobody, and there was a coffee cup knocked over and coffee running off the edge in a thin brown line. The second thing he noticed was Victoria Hayes's back against a concrete pillar and 4 men in a half circle around her. The third thing he noticed was that one of them had his hand around her throat. Daniel didn't think. 20 years later, he'd still say that, and it'd still be true. He didn't decide. His body just went because some men are built such that when they see a person being hurt, the part of them that calculates simply shuts off. And that's not bravery exactly. It's closer to a defect, and it's the only defect worth having. He grabbed the mop off the wall rack by the janitor's closet. A wooden handle, 48 inches, the kind they don't make anymore, and he crossed 40 feet of concrete without making a sound, because after 11 months, he knew exactly which part of that floor was quiet. The mop handle cracked across the gunman's wrist. Something snapped. The pistol went skidding under a black Mercedes. "Don't touch her!" Victoria dropped gasping, and Daniel put himself between her and all four of them. 180 pounds of exhausted single father with a mop handle facing four men who did this for money. For 1 full second, nobody moved. Then the biggest one, heavy-build gray jacket, dead flat eyes, started to laugh. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was worse. It was the laugh of a man watching something go exactly precisely as planned. "Well," he said. He looked Daniel up and down, slow, amused. And then he said the thing that took the floor out from under the whole world. "Carter, you're early tonight." Daniel's grip died on the handle. Behind him, Victoria's head came up. "He knows your name," she rasped. Daniel couldn't answer, because in 11 months in that entire tower, only 4 people had ever known his name, and not one of them was standing in this garage. The big man reached into his jacket. He didn't pull a gun. He pulled a folded piece of paper, and he held it up between 2 fingers like a card trick, and Daniel saw his own photograph on it. His photograph, his employee number, his shift schedule printed out highlighted in yellow, and underneath, in the same blue marker he'd seen in Event Reflection 2 nights ago, one handwritten line, "He's the one who'll talk." "See, here's the funny part," the big man said, almost gently, almost kind. "We weren't waiting for her." He smiled. "We were waiting for you." 9:41 at night, and Daniel Carter stood in a concrete garage, holding a mop handle, looking at a piece of paper with his own face on it. "We were waiting for you," the big man said again, like he wanted to be sure it landed. It landed. "Why?" Daniel said. "Because you're a loose thread, Dan. And I get paid to pull loose threads." Behind him, Victoria was still on the floor, one hand on her throat, and Daniel heard her breathing change. Not fear, something else, something sharpening. "You said my name," Daniel said. "How do you know my name?" "Somebody gave it to me." "Who?" The big man smiled and did not answer, and that was the moment Daniel understood that he was not going to walk out of this by talking. The one with the broken wrist came first. He came fast, and he came angry, which was the only gift Daniel got that night because angry men come in a straight line. Daniel did not swing the handle. He shoved it both hands straight into the man's collarbone like he was pushing a car out of a snowbank, and the man's own speed did the rest. He went down over the concrete parking stop, and his head made a sound that Daniel would hear in his sleep for a year. "Get up," the big man said. The man on the ground did not get up. 9:42. "Ms. Hayes," Daniel said, not turning around. "Your car." "What? Where is your car?" "2 rows over, silver." "Keys." "In my hand." "Good," Daniel said. "When I say go, you run, and you do not look back at me. Not once. Understand?" "Daniel." "Say you understand. I'm not leaving you here. Ma'am, with respect, you're the only one in this garage worth anything to anybody. Say you understand." "He's not wrong," the big man said cheerfully. "You are the valuable one. He's the trash." And Victoria Hayes, 41 years old, with a man's handprint coming up red on her neck, said something that surprised every single person on that level. She said, "His name is Daniel Carter, and he has a daughter named Emma." The big man blinked. So say it," Victoria said. "Say his name. If you're going to kill a man, say his name first. Look at him. Lady, say it." And it was such an insane thing to say, in such an insane moment, that for 1 full second, all 4 of them just stared at her. And that 1 second was the entire difference between the story where Daniel Carter dies in a parking garage and the story you're listening to right now. Because in that second, Daniel threw the mop handle at the big man's face and hit the fire alarm. 9:43. The horn on level 3 was mounted 6 feet from where he was standing, and it was not a beep. It was a physical thing. It hit the concrete and came back off the walls and turned the whole level into the inside of a bell, and the strobe started white and stupid and blinding, and every man in that half circle flinched because you cannot help it. Nobody can help it. Go. Victoria went. Daniel did not. He went the other way, straight at them, screaming arms out, because he had worked out something in the last 4 seconds that would have taken most men 4 days. They could chase her, or they could chase him. And whichever one they chased, they had to choose. They chose him. Of course they chose him. Because whoever hired them had put his photo on a piece of paper and highlighted his shift in yellow. He took a fist in the ribs that turned his whole left side into a bright white sheet of nothing. He took a knee to the thigh. He got a hand into somebody's jacket and pulled, and they both went down, and Daniel came up first, only because he had spent 11 months hauling 90-pound floor buffers up ramps, and his back was a farm boy's back, and he ran. He ran for the janitor's closet. 9:44. The door had a knob that stuck. Every night for 11 months it stuck. He hit it with his shoulder, and it opened the way it always opened. And he was inside, and he threw the deadbolt that maintenance had installed 2 years ago, because somebody kept stealing the copper. Then, somebody hit the door. The whole frame jumped. Carter. The big man on the other side, not even out of breath. Open the door. Daniel put his back against it and slid down and got his phone out with hands that would not hold still. Open the door, Dan. He dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Hayes Technologies, 1200 Marsh, parking level 3. He could barely hear himself over the alarm. 4 men, at least 1 gun. They just tried to kill Victoria Hayes. Sir, I need you to. I don't have time, ma'am. There's a security desk on this level and there's nobody at it, and there's coffee spilled all over it. You need to send somebody for that guy too. The door jumped again. Something in the frame cracked. Sir, are you safe? Daniel looked at the door. No, ma'am, he said. I'm not. 9:45. And then on the other side of that door the pounding just stopped. That was worse. Daniel would tell you that for the rest of his life. The pounding was survivable. The silence was not. He heard the big man's voice low, close right up against the metal. Hey, Dan. Daniel said nothing. You got a kid, right, Emma? 7. Daniel's whole body went to ice water. See, that's the thing about a loose thread, the man said, conversational, almost warm. You don't pull it once, you pull it all the way. So think about that when you're deciding what you saw and what you didn't see. You touch my daughter, Daniel said, and he did not recognize his own voice, and there is nowhere on this earth. Yeah, the man said. That's what everybody says. And then over the alarm sirens. Far off, but real. Huh, the man said. Fast. Footsteps. Not running. Walking. That was the part that stayed with Daniel. They walked out of that garage like men leaving a restaurant. 9:51, and Daniel Carter was still sitting on the floor of a closet that smelled like bleach and wet cotton, holding a phone with a dead call on it, shaking so hard his teeth were clicking. He was not shaking because he had almost died. He was shaking because a stranger had said his daughter's name. At 10:04, a cop opened the closet door and found a janitor sitting on an overturned bucket with blood coming out of his eyebrow, and the first thing Daniel said was, "Not help me." It was, "Did she get out, sir?" The woman, "Did she get out?" "Ma'am's upstairs," the cop said. "She's fine. She's the one who told us where you were." And Daniel put his face in both hands and made a sound that was not crying exactly, but it was in the family. At 10:40, in a conference room on the ground floor with 2 detectives and a paramedic and a cup of coffee, he never drank. Daniel Carter told the truth. All of it. The whiteboard. The vent. The bag with the foil liner. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:45. Gerald Vance in a doorway asking him his name. The older detective wrote it all down. The younger one did not write anything down. He just watched Daniel's hands. "So let me make sure I've got this," the younger one said. "You saw a whiteboard in a vent." "Yes, sir." "A reflection in a vent." "Yes, sir." "And on the whiteboard was your CEO's name with a line through it." "That was 2 weeks ago. Thursday it was a date and a location." "But you didn't take a picture." Daniel looked at him. "No, sir. You had a phone. You've got one in your hand right now. But you didn't take a picture of the one piece of evidence that would make this whole story make sense." "If I'd raised a phone in that hallway," Daniel said, "I would not have made it to the elevator." "Huh," the younger detective said. And there it was. Daniel knew that sound. It was the sound of a man deciding what kind of guy you were. "Mr. Carter, how much do you make?" "Oh, 19 an hour." "Any debts?" "Some." "How much is some?" Daniel's jaw worked. "Medical," he said. "My wife was sick. It's about $41,000. $41,000, the detective repeated, and wrote that down. First thing he wrote all night. 11:15 p.m. The older detective walked him out and stopped him in the hallway and said quietly, "Don't take it personal. He's got a job. His job is finding out who did this. His job," the detective said, "is finding out who benefits. And right now, there's exactly one person in this building who went from invisible to sitting in a room with the CEO in about 90 minutes. He held Daniel's eyes. "Go home. Lock your door. And Carter, don't go anywhere." Daniel got to his car at 11:31 and sat behind the wheel and did not start it because his hands would not stop, and because there was a thought sitting in the middle of his head that he had been running from for 2 hours, and now there was nowhere left to run. He knew my name. 4 people in that tower knew his name. He had said it out loud himself 3 nights ago, sitting on a floor full of paper. Guy in shipping, 2 security guards, and her. Somebody knocked on his window. Daniel came out of his skin. Victoria Hayes was standing in the dark next to his car, with a coat over her shoulders and a bruise on her throat, and no security anywhere near her. He rolled the window down 4 inches. "You should be gone," he said. "So should you." "Ma'am, where is your detail?" "Fired," Victoria said. "Both of them. 2 hours ago." "Fired." "There were supposed to be 2 men on level 3 tonight, Daniel. One of them called in sick at 8:50. The other one left the desk at 9:36 to go check a fire door on level 1. Her voice was very even, which was how Daniel had learned to tell she was furious. "There is no fire door on level 1. There has never been a fire door on level 1. Daniel closed his eyes. "They were mine," Victoria said. "Both of them. Those were my guys." "How many of them knew my name?" The question came out flat, and Victoria stopped. "What?" "You asked me a question 3 nights ago." Daniel finally looked at her. "You asked me how many people in this company had said thank you to me in 11 months. I said 4. Guy in shipping, 2 security guards, and you." Victoria's face went white. "That man in the garage knew my name," Daniel said. "He knew my shift. He had it printed out and highlighted, ma'am. Somebody made him a page about me, and there are exactly 4 people in that tower who could have told him where to start." The silence went on so long that Daniel heard the parking garage exhaust fan cycling 3 floors below. "You're asking if it was me," Victoria said. "No, ma'am." "Yes, you are." "No," Daniel said, "I'm not, and I'll tell you why. Because if it was you, you'd have let them finish. All you had to do tonight was not tell that cop where the closet was." He gripped the wheel. "But I'd be a fool not to say it out loud. And I've been a lot of things, ma'am. I'd rather not add fool." Victoria Hayes stood there in the cold, with her hands in her coat pockets, and something happened to her face that Daniel had never seen on it. It cracked. "He put his hand on my throat," she said. "I know. I have been in rooms with senators. I have taken this company from 400 million to 9 billion, and a man put his hand on my throat and told me to be quiet, and I was." Her voice broke on the last word, and she stopped and got it back. "I was quiet, Daniel. I did what he said." "Ma'am, that's not—" "And the only person on this earth who came for me," she said, was a man I've spoken 40 words to. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist once fast, like she was angry at it. 43 now, Daniel said, and Victoria Hayes laughed. It came out wet and ugly and surprised, and she put a hand over her mouth. Don't make me laugh. He nearly killed me. He nearly killed both of us. I figure we've earned one. 12:06 a.m. Daniel drove home the long way and checked his mirror 11 times and pulled over twice to let cars pass, and every time headlights came up behind him, his hands got tighter, and the whole way there was one sentence going around his skull like a marble in a coffee can. You got a kid right. Emma. 7. He came up his own street at 12:24, and the porch light was off, which meant nothing because the porch light had been broken since April. He sat in the driveway. He looked at the house. He had lived there 6 years. He had carried his wife over that threshold, and he had carried her out of it, and he knew the sound of every board on that porch, and he sat in his car at 12:25 in the morning and could not make himself walk up to his own front door. Then he did. The door was locked. The chain was on. Mrs. Alvarez was asleep in the recliner with the TV going, and Emma was in her bed with the plastic tea. Rex under one arm, and Daniel stood in that doorway and breathed for a long, long time. Then he went through the whole house. Every window, every door, the basement, the little crawl space behind the water heater that he had not opened in 2 years. At 1:15, he sat down on the floor of the hallway, outside his daughter's room, with his back against the wall, and he did not go to bed at all. At 6:45, Emma found him there. Daddy, why are you on the floor? Fell asleep. On the floor. It's a good floor, Daniel said. I mopped it. Emma looked at his eyebrow. There were 3 butterfly strips over it, and the whole side of his face had gone the color of a bad plum. What happened to your head? And Daniel Carter, who had never once lied to his daughter, opened his mouth and found out that he could. Bumped it on a shelf. Was it a mean shelf? Real mean. Emma studied him with her mother's eyes, which was the worst thing about her, and put one small hand on the side of his face that was not purple. You should stop working there, she said. Yeah, everybody's mean at your work. Not everybody bug. Who's nice? Daniel thought about a woman on a floor covered in paper. There's a lady, he said. She says thank you. At 8:10 in the morning, Daniel's phone rang, and it was Ray, the night supervisor, and Ray's voice was doing something strange. Carter, don't come in tonight. What? You're suspended, paid, pending investigation. Daniel stood up out of his chair so fast it went over. Investigation of what? Unauthorized access. You were on 12 on Tuesday. You're a 31 to 38 guy, Danny, and you were on 12 and there's badge data. Ray, listen to me. 4 men tried to kill the CEO last night, and I know what happened last night, Ray said, and his voice cracked, and Daniel stopped, because in 3 years, Ray had never once cracked. You think I don't know the cops were here at 6 in the morning. I gave them your file. I didn't want to give them your file. Who told you to suspend me? Silence. Ray, who signed it? I'm not supposed to. Who signed it? Ray breathed out. HR, he said. But HR doesn't move that fast, Danny. Nothing in this building moves that fast. Somebody woke somebody up. 9:02 a.m., and Daniel Carter sat in his kitchen with a suspension he did not understand, and a bruise on his ribs he could not breathe around. And he did the math that he had been avoiding since 11:15 the night before. They could not kill him now. Too many cops. Too many cameras. So they were going to do the other thing. They were going to make him the guy. $41,000 in medical debt. 19 an hour. A dead wife and a kid and a man who suddenly inexplicably showed up in a garage at exactly the right second with exactly the right story about a whiteboard nobody else ever saw. He put both hands flat on the table. Oh, he said out loud to an empty kitchen. Oh, that's good. 10:30 a.m. He called the number the older detective had given him. It went to voicemail. He called it again at 11. Voicemail. At 11:40, a woman called him back, and it was not the detective. It was somebody from the district attorney's office, and she was extremely polite, and she used the word cooperative 4 times in 90 seconds, and she asked him if he had an attorney. Daniel sat down on the arm of his couch. "Ma'am, do I need one? That's entirely your decision, sir. I'm asking you." "I can't advise you on that." "You just did," Daniel said. 12:15 p.m. He was in the garage with a beer. He was not drinking, looking at a wall of Claire's boxes he had never opened, when his phone buzzed with a number he did not know. He almost did not answer it. "Carter?" "Daniel, it's Victoria." He straightened up. "Ma'am?" "They suspended you." "Yes, ma'am?" "I didn't sign it." "I know. I want you to hear me say it anyway. I did not sign it. I found out 40 minutes ago from my own assistant who found out from a message board." A pause, and something in her voice went dangerous. "Do you understand what that means, Daniel? Somebody in my company removed an employee without my knowledge. 12 hours after that employee saved my life. Ma'am, I need to ask you something, and I need you to not be the CEO when you answer it." "Go ahead." "Am I going to jail?" The silence on that line lasted 4 seconds. "Not while I'm breathing," Victoria said. "That's not a no." "No," she said. "It's not." Daniel closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the garage wall. "Okay," he said. "Daniel." "I said okay, ma'am." "There's a board meeting Monday morning," Victoria said. "Emergency session. Gerald Vance called it at 7 this morning. The agenda has one item on it." "What item?" "Fitness of leadership," Victoria said. "Mine." And Daniel Carter, standing in a garage full of his dead wife's boxes, started to laugh, and it was not a good laugh. "Ma'am," he said, "they're not trying to kill you anymore. They're trying to bury you, and they're going to use me to do it." "Yes," Victoria said. "That's what I think too." Because who's the last man who's going to get believed? A guy with $41,000 in medical debt who showed up in a garage at the exact right minute. "Daniel, they're going to say I staged it." He was pacing now. "They're going to say I hired those men, say I set up a rescue to get close to you because the story's perfect, ma'am. It writes itself, it's a better story than the truth. Poor widower. Sad kid. Big payday. 12 people on that board will believe it before I finish the first sentence." 14, Victoria said. "There are 14. How many are yours?" 6, maybe 5. "So you lose." "So I lose," Victoria agreed. 1:11 p.m. And Daniel stood in that garage and made a choice that he would spend the rest of his life trying to explain to people. "Then don't defend yourself," he said. "Excuse me. Monday. Don't defend yourself. You get up there and you fight them on the numbers and the vote and the fitness of leadership, and you're doing exactly what they want, because that's their field, ma'am. That's a game they've been playing since they were 19. Daniel's voice dropped. "You've got to take them somewhere they've never been." "Which is where?" "The truth," Daniel said. "Out loud, in front of everybody, with the janitor standing there." "Daniel." Victoria's voice changed. "If you walk into that room, they will take you apart, every one of them. They will put your wife's hospital bills on a screen. They will bring up whatever's in your file and whatever isn't. They will make you a criminal in 90 seconds, and there will not be a thing I can do about it." "I know." "Your daughter will read about it." Daniel stopped pacing. That one landed. That one went all the way in. "Yeah," he said very quietly. "She will. So say no." "Ma'am?" "Say no, Daniel. I'm giving you the door. Take the door." And Daniel Carter looked at a stack of cardboard boxes with his wife's handwriting on them. Boxes he had not been able to open in 2 years and 4 months, and he heard her voice as clear as if she were standing in the doorway with a dish towel over her shoulder. "Danny, don't get small." "There's a problem with the door," he said. "What problem?" "They know my kid's name," Daniel said. "He said it to me through the closet, Emma, 7. He said it like he was reading it off something. His voice was completely steady now, and that was somehow the most frightening thing about it. So there isn't a door, ma'am. There's just a room with a fight in it, and a room with a fight in it later when I'm alone and she's the one standing there. And I'd rather have it now. He heard Victoria breathe out. Monday, she said. 8 a.m. I'll be there. They will not let you in the building. Ma'am, Daniel said. I've got a key to every door on all 42 floors, and I've had it for 11 months, and not one of them ever noticed. 2:40 p.m. Saturday, he drove to Mrs. Alvarez's sister's place 40 minutes north with Emma and a duffel bag and a plastic dinosaur, and he lied to his daughter for the second time in her life. It's like a vacation, he said. It's not a vacation. How do you figure? You're not coming, Emma said. Daniel knelt down on that driveway and held his kid by both shoulders. 2 nights, he said. That's all. 2 nights and I'm here. You said you always come. I always come. Then come. Daniel felt his throat close. Emma, look at me. There's something I have to do at work and it's important. And it's the kind of important your mom would have done. He tapped her chest with one finger. You know what she'd say? Don't get small, Emma said immediately. And Daniel Carter, who had not cried in front of another human being since the funeral, had to stand up and look at the sky for a second. Yeah, he said. That's right. Sunday, 11:50 p.m. His phone lit up on the kitchen table. No name, just a number. He picked it up and said nothing. Dan. The big man, calm as a Sunday. Heard you're planning to come to work tomorrow. Daniel's whole body went still. You're not supposed to have this number, he said. I'm not supposed to have a lot of things. Something rustled paper close to the phone. Hey, quick question. There a reason your kid's not at the house? The kitchen tilted. 40 minutes north, the man said. Blue house. Little dog next door that never shuts up. A pause. Relax. I'm not there. I'm just letting you know I could be. Daniel could not make his mouth work. So here's the deal, and it's a good one, and I'm only saying it once, the man said. Tomorrow morning you stay home. You don't walk into that room. You don't say one word about a whiteboard or a vent or a garage. You go get your kid on Tuesday, and you find a new job, and you live a long, boring, beautiful life. And if I walk in that room, then it's not a deal anymore, the man said. Then it's a math problem. Daniel stood in his kitchen at 11:52 on a Sunday night and looked at a plastic T-Rex sitting on the counter where his daughter had left it for him, the good one, the one she saved. Say her name, Daniel said. What? You want me scared, say her name. You said it through a door when I couldn't see you. Daniel's voice went so low it was almost nothing. Say it now, on a phone, with a record. Dead air. Yeah, Daniel said. That's what I thought. Carter, no, you listen to me now. And something came up out of Daniel Carter that had been buried for 2 years and 4 months under bleach and mop water and $19 an hour. You made one mistake, just one. You looked at me and you saw a guy in a gray uniform and you figured there was nothing in there. That's what everybody in that building figures. That's the whole point of me, and it's the only reason you're gonna lose. You're a janitor. That's right, Daniel said. And I've been in every room in that tower every night for 11 months, and none of you ever once looked up. He hung up. Then he sat down very slowly on the kitchen floor and put his head between his knees and shook. At 6:15 Monday morning, Daniel Carter put on the only suit he owned, the one he had bought for a funeral, and it did not fit anymore, and he did not care. At 7:40, he badged into the service entrance of Hayes Technologies with an ID that had not been deactivated, because deactivating a janitor's badge is a Thursday problem, and nobody in that building had ever once thought about him on a Monday. At 7:56, he stepped out of the elevator on 42 and walked into a boardroom with 14 people in it, and Gerald Vance looked up from the head of the table and went absolutely completely white. And Daniel said, "Morning, sir. Sorry I'm late. Traffic." 7:56 in the morning, and nobody in that room said a word. 14 people. 14 faces turning at the same time the way a field of birds turns, and Daniel Carter stood in the doorway in a suit he had bought to bury his wife in and watched Gerald Vance's coffee cup stop halfway to his mouth. "Get him out," Vance said. Nobody moved. "I said get him out." "Gerald." Victoria was at the far end of the table standing, and she had not sat down since Daniel walked in. "He's an employee. He's a suspended employee. He's a witness. He's a janitor," Vance said. And there it was, out loud in front of everybody, the whole thing in one word. "He is not on the agenda. He is not on the roster. And he does not belong in this room." Daniel walked in anyway. He walked past 11 chairs and set one hand on the back of the 12th and did not sit in it. "Sir," he said, "you're right. I'm not on the agenda. I've never been on anybody's agenda in my whole life." He looked around the table. "But I emptied the trash in this room every single night for 11 months. So I've been in here more than any of you." Somebody at the far end coughed. Vance's jaw went tight. "Mr. Carter, this is a private session." "Then vote," Daniel said. "What? You want me out, vote me out. That's what you people do, right? You vote." He shrugged. "Go ahead, I'll wait in the hall." 7:59. An older man 3 chairs down, white hair, hands folded, had been watching the whole thing without moving. He was maybe 75. He had a legal pad in front of him and nothing written on it. "Let him stay," the old man said. Vance turned. "Harold," I said, "let him stay." Harold said, "I've sat on this board 19 years, and I've never once seen a man walk into it on his own 2 feet. I'd like to hear what he came to say." Harold, with respect. "Gerald." Harold did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "You called an emergency session at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning about the fitness of the woman who built this company 4 days after somebody put their hands on her in our own garage. I've got questions of my own. Sit down." And Gerald Vance sat down. Daniel felt something shift in that room. Something about 2 degrees, and he understood that he had exactly 1 shot, and about 90 seconds to take it before the machinery started again. 8:02. "Mr. Carter," Harold turned to him. "You've got the floor. Nobody's going to give you long." Daniel put both hands on the back of the chair. "4 men were waiting on level 3 last Thursday night," he said. "There were supposed to be 2 security officers down there. One called in sick at 8:50. The other one left the desk at 9:36 to check a fire door on level 1. He paused. "There is no fire door on level 1. Silence. "When I got down there, the desk was empty, and there was coffee running off the edge of it. That's not a man who walked away. That's a man who got moved." "That's speculation," a woman down the table said. "Yes, ma'am, it is. Here's what's not." Daniel looked at Vance. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 weeks, 5 men met in the 12th floor conference room at 10:45 at night. They put their phones in a bag. The bag has a foil liner. It blocks signal. You can buy them online for $30. He tilted his head. "You don't need one of those to talk about quarterly earnings." Vance's face did not move. "And 2 Thursdays ago," Daniel said, "there was a name on the whiteboard in that room. Victoria Hayes, with a line through it." The room came apart. 3 people talked at once. Somebody said, "This is insane." Somebody else said, "How would he even?" A man in a blue shirt said, "Has anyone verified?" And Vance's voice came up over all of it, calm and cold and very, very good. "Mr. Carter, how did you see this whiteboard?" Daniel had been waiting for it. "In the vent. In the vent," Vance repeated. "Polished aluminum housing west wall. You can see the whole room in it if you're down on the floor doing the carpet." Vance turned to the table and opened both hands, and Daniel watched a man pick up a knife. "So to be clear," Vance said, "the entirety of this accusation against me in front of this board rests on a janitor claiming he read my handwriting backwards in an air vent." "Yes, sir," Daniel said. "That's exactly what it rests on. You have no photograph." "No, sir." "No recording." "No, sir." "No witness." "No, sir." No badge record placing you on that floor at that time. Actually, Daniel said, you've got one of those. That's why I'm suspended. 8:06. And something happened to Gerald Vance's face for exactly a quarter of a second, and Daniel saw it, and so did Harold. You suspended him, Harold said. HR suspended him. At 8 in the morning, Victoria said, on the Friday after, 12 hours after he saved my life. I found out from a message board, Gerald. My own company and I found out from a message board. Unauthorized floor access is a terminable offense, Victoria. It's in the handbook you signed. He was on 12 because he was watching you. He was on 12, Vance said, because he was casing this building. And the room went dead quiet. 8:07. There it is, Daniel said softly. Excuse me. I said there it is. Daniel almost smiled. Go on, sir. Say the rest. You've been holding it since I walked in, and it's killing you. Say the rest. Vance looked at him for a long moment, and then he reached into a folder and slid a single sheet of paper down the table, and it went past 11 people, and every one of them looked at it, and every one of them looked up at Daniel differently afterward. $41,312, Vance said. Medical debt. Collections since March. 2 missed rent payments in the last 18 months. A vehicle repossession notice in January withdrawn. He looked up. $19 an hour, ladies and gentlemen. A widower with a 7-year-old. And, on a Thursday night at the precise moment, 4 armed men appear in a garage that has never had an incident in 14 years. This man materializes with a mop handle and saves the CEO. Gerald, Harold said. And now he's in our boardroom. Gerald? Ask yourself the question, Vance said. That's all. I'm not accusing this man of anything. I'm asking the question that any reasonable person asks. Who benefits? Daniel stood very still. He had known it was coming. He had told Victoria it was coming, standing in a garage full of his dead wife's boxes. He had rehearsed 9 different answers on the drive-in. He did not use any of them. Sir? He said. May I see that paper? Vance blinked. What? The paper, with my debt on it. May I see it? Somebody slid it to him. Daniel picked it up and looked at it for a long moment, and then he did something that nobody in that room expected. He read it out loud. Carter Claire M., he said. Admitted March 14th. Discharged March 22nd. Readmitted April 2nd. His voice was completely level. Oncology. Room 411. 12,000 for the first round. 9 for the second. The room had gone so quiet that the air handlers were audible. Mr. Carter, Harold said quietly, you don't have to. No, sir, I do. Daniel set the paper down. Because he just put my wife's last 4 months on this table like it was a criminal record, and everybody at it looked at me different, and I want to make sure everybody understands what they're looking at. He turned the paper around, so it faced Vance. That's not evidence I'm a crook, sir, Daniel said. That's a receipt for the worst year of my life, and you had somebody pull it, which means at some point in the last 4 days, a man in this company sat down and thought, how do we make the janitor look dirty? He let that sit. Who benefits, sir? You went and got my wife's hospital bills on a Saturday. Who does that? Nobody said anything. Vance's ears had gone red. That's a very emotional answer, he said. Yes, sir, it is. 8:11. But it's not proof of anything. Vance said, recovering smooth again, and Daniel watched him do it, and had to admire it a little the way you admire a snake. None of it is. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. We have a story. A very moving story. And we have zero evidence, and a woman running a $9 billion company off the word of a man she'd spoken to 4 times. 43 words, Victoria said. What? He counted, Victoria said. 43 words. That's how much I'd said to him before he put himself in front of a gun for me. She looked around the table. And I'd like every person here to sit with that number for a second. Because I'm the one who said thank you. I'm the good one. 4 people in 11 months, and I was one of them, and I still couldn't have told you his daughter's name until 3 nights ago." Harold looked down at his blank legal pad. "Victoria," Vance said, "this is exactly the emotional volatility." "Say the word," Victoria said. "Pardon." "You've been circling it for 4 days. Say it. Hysterical." "Come on, Gerald. There are 11 men at this table. Half of them are waiting for you to say it so they don't have to." "That is beneath you." "It's beneath me." Victoria's voice cracked like a whip, and the whole table jumped. "A man had his hand around my throat on Thursday, and you called this meeting on Saturday, not to ask if I was alive, to ask if I was fit." 8:14, and Gerald Vance made the first real mistake of his career. "Somebody had to," he said. It came out of him fast before he could stop it, and Daniel saw the exact moment Vance heard his own voice. Harold's head came up. "Somebody had to," Harold repeated. "Harold, you said somebody had to." The old man set down his pen. "Gerald, how'd you know about the garage?" "It was in the incident report." "The incident report went out at 4:15 Friday afternoon," Harold said. "You called this meeting at 7 Saturday morning. That's fine. That's 15 hours. He tilted his head. "But you called the outside counsel at 9:40 on Thursday night." The room stopped. "What?" Vance said. 9:40, Harold said. "Kessler called me Sunday to make sure I had the packet. He mentioned you'd reached out Thursday evening. I thought that was awfully quick, so I asked him what time." He picked his pen back up. 9:40. 8:15, and Daniel Carter felt the entire room tilt on its axis. "Gerald," Harold said. "The alarm on level 3 went off at 9:43. Vance did not answer. "You called our lawyer about the fitness of Victoria's leadership," Harold said very slowly, 3 minutes before anything happened to her. The silence went on so long that Daniel heard somebody's chair creak. "That's a coincidence," Vance said. "Is it?" "Yes, it is. And I resent." "You can resent whatever you like," Harold said. "I've been in this chair 19 years, and I have never in my life heard a coincidence with that kind of timing." He looked down the table. "Somebody get Kessler on the phone." 3 people reached for their phones at once. "Nobody call Kessler," Vance said. "Gerald." "Nobody call Kessler." And there it was. The crack. The whole room heard it, and Gerald Vance heard himself hear it, and Daniel watched a man realize that he had been reading the room wrong for 4 minutes. 8:17. "Sir," Daniel said quietly, "you want to know why I'm really standing here?" Vance's head snapped around. "Because I never once thought you'd get charged with anything," Daniel said. "Guys like you don't. I'm not stupid. I mop floors, I'm not a fool." He put his hands in his pockets. "I came because a man called my house last night at 11:50 and told me not to." The room went absolutely airless. "He called your house," Harold said. "Yes, sir. Last night. 11:50. Unknown number." Daniel's voice did not shake. "He told me my daughter's not at my house. He told me she's 40 minutes north, Blue House. He told me there's a little dog next door that barks." Somebody down the table said, "Oh my God." "He said if I stayed home this morning it was a deal," Daniel said. "And if I walked in this room it was a math problem." "Mr. Carter," Harold said, and the old man's voice had gone strange. "Did you record that call?" "No, sir." Vance exhaled, and it was very small, and Daniel heard it. "I couldn't," Daniel said. "My phone's 4 years old, and the recorder app never worked." "Then it's your word again," Vance said, and there was something almost gentle in it now, something like relief dressed up as sympathy. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry, I am. But you understand, this is exactly the pattern. Every single piece of this is one man's account with nothing behind it." "Yes, sir," Daniel said. "That's true. So, that's why I didn't bring my phone." 8:19. Vance stopped. "What?" Daniel reached into his jacket, into the inside pocket of a suit he had last worn at a funeral, and took out something small and black and cheap, The kind of thing you buy for $22 at a store that sells hearing aid batteries and reading glasses. Digital recorder, he said. Voice activated. My wife used one for her nursing classes. He set it on the table. I got it out of a box in my garage on Saturday. It still had her handwriting on the label. It still worked. Nobody breathed. I've had it in my pocket since Sunday morning, Daniel said. 11:50 last night I put it on the counter next to the phone. That's illegal, Vance said instantly. Is it? Daniel looked at Harold. Sir, is it? One-party consent state, Harold said. He had not blinked in 10 seconds. It's legal, Mr. Carter. Huh, Daniel said. Would you look at that? 8:20 and Gerald Vance stood up out of his chair. This meeting is adjourned. Sit down, Gerald. I'm calling for adjournment. Sit down. Harold Bishop, 75 years old, 19 years on that board, came out of his chair and roared it, and Gerald Vance sat down like his legs had been cut. Play it, Harold said. Daniel pressed the button, and the voice came out of that little cheap speaker, thin and tinny and completely unmistakably human. Dan, heard you're planning to come to work tomorrow. Somebody's pen hit the floor. Quick question. There a reason your kid's not at the house 40 minutes north? Blue house. Little dog next door that never shuts up. Relax. I'm not there. I'm just letting you know I could be. The woman down the table put her hand over her mouth. So here's the deal. Tomorrow morning you stay home. You don't walk into that room. You don't say one word about a whiteboard or a vent or a garage. You go get your kid on Tuesday and you find a new job. And you live a long, boring, beautiful life. And then Daniel's own voice low on the recording. And if I walk in that room, then it's not a deal anymore. Then it's a math problem. Daniel hit stop. 8:22 in the morning, and 14 of the most powerful people in that city sat in a room and could not make a sound. Harold Bishop's hand was shaking. Daniel watched it. The old man put it flat on the table to stop it. Play the rest, Harold said. Sir, that's... You said he called at 11:50. That's 90 seconds. There's more. Play the rest. Daniel looked at him. Yes, sir, he said, and pressed the button again. Say her name. What? You want me scared? Say her name. You said it through a door when I couldn't see you. Say it now, on a phone, with a record. Silence on the recording. 4 seconds of it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Carter. No, you listen to me now. You made one mistake. Just one. You looked at me and you saw a guy in a gray uniform and you figured there was nothing in there. That's what everybody in that building figures. That's the whole point of me, and it's the only reason you're gonna lose. You're a janitor. That's right. And I've been in every room in that tower every night for 11 months, and none of you ever once looked up. Click. 8:24. The woman down the table was crying. She was not making any noise about it. She was just sitting there with her hand over her mouth and water coming down her face. And she was one of the ones who had voted with Vance on everything for 6 years. Mr. Carter, Harold said. His voice had gone hoarse. Who is that man on the phone? I don't know his name, sir. Would you know his face? Yes, sir. I'd know it in 100 years. Harold turned. Gerald. I have never met that man, Vance said, in my life. I didn't ask you that. I'm telling you. I didn't ask you that, Harold said. I asked you nothing, and you answered anyway. 8:25, and Daniel Carter watched a man's face come apart in real time, and it was not satisfying. That was the thing nobody ever tells you. He had thought it would feel like something. It felt like watching a building settle. This proves nothing about me, Vance said. Some criminal calls a janitor. That has nothing to do with... Sir, Daniel said, can I say one more thing and then I'll go? Vance's mouth kept moving for a second, with no sound coming out of it. On Thursday on 12, you opened that door and you asked me my name, Daniel said. You remember? Vance said nothing. I told you, Dan. Just Dan. You asked me Dan what, and I wouldn't tell you, and you stood there 4 seconds, and then you told me to do the other end of the hall. Daniel looked at him. 26 hours later, a man in a parking garage held up a piece of paper with my full name on it. Daniel Carter, employee number, shift schedule printed out, highlighted in yellow. Nobody moved. Sir, Daniel said, I never gave you my last name. 8:27. Gerald Vance did not say anything. That was the whole answer. That was all of it. 14 people watched a man sit in a chair and not say anything for 6 full seconds, and by the end of it the vote had already happened and no hands had gone up. Somebody call the police, Harold said. Harold. Somebody in this room call the police right now. Harold, you have known me for 11 years. I have, Harold said. That's the part I'm going to have trouble sleeping about. 8:31, and the doors opened, and the 2 detectives from Thursday night walked in, because Victoria Hayes had called them at 7:15 that morning and asked them to stand in the hallway and wait. Daniel turned and looked at her. She had not moved from the far end of the table in 35 minutes. She had not needed to. You had them out there the whole time, he said. I had them out there the whole time. You didn't tell me. You'd have performed, Victoria said. You're a terrible liar, Daniel. It's your best quality, and it's completely useless. And the younger detective, the one who had written down 41,000 and nothing else, walked past Daniel Carter and did not look at him, and then stopped and turned around and came back. Mr. Carter. Detective. The young man's jaw worked. Thursday night, he said. I asked you about your wife's bills. You did. I'd like to. You had a job, Daniel said. You did it. If I'd been you, I'd have asked me too. The detective stood there a second longer, and then he stuck his hand out, and Daniel shook it. 8:40, and it should have been over. That was the thing Daniel would think about later, sitting in a hallway with his back against a wall at 3 in the morning. It should have been over right there. Harold had the room. Vance had nothing. The detectives had a recording and a timeline, and a lawyer named Kessler who was going to fold like a lawn chair. It should have been over. 8:41, and Gerald Vance stood up with his hands out and let them cuff him, and did not resist, and did not shout, and did not do a single thing a guilty man does in the movies. He just stood there. Calm, almost bored. And on his way past Daniel, he stopped. Mr. Carter? Daniel turned. 6 weeks ago, Vance said, I sat in this room and I argued against outsourcing the custodial contract. Do you know that 12-0, and I was the one. I said these people have families. He tilted his head. I've given $400,000 to a children's hospital. I coach a little league team. My daughter's 30 and she still calls me every Sunday. Sir, I'm not a monster, Vance said, and he said it so simply, so reasonably that Daniel's skin crawled. That's what you can't get your head around. Nobody in that garage was supposed to touch her. Nobody. It was supposed to be a scare. 10 seconds. She can't get your head around. Nobody in that garage was supposed to touch her. Nobody. It was supposed to be a scare. 10 seconds. She comes upstairs shaking the board, sees she can't handle it, and she steps down with her dignity and $80 million, and she goes and does whatever she wants for the rest of her life. His eyes were flat and calm. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. Daniel stared at him. He had his hand on her throat, he said. Yes. Vance nodded slowly. He did. You hired him. No, Vance said. That's the thing, Mr. Carter. I didn't. 8:43. Daniel felt the floor go. What? I made a phone call, Vance said. One. To a man who knows a man. That's how it's done, and everybody who's ever done it will tell you the same thing. He leaned in slightly, and his voice dropped, and there was something in it now that was not calm at all. And somewhere between my phone call and that garage it changed. It got bigger. Somebody added to it. Vance. I asked for 10 seconds and a scare, Vance said. Somebody asked for a body. And Mr. Carter, I want you to understand something before they take me out of here. He looked Daniel dead in the eye. It wasn't me. The detective pulled his arm. Ask her about Marcus, Vance said. And Daniel Carter's whole body turned to stone in the middle of that room, because 11 days ago, he had been on his knees in a fourth-floor bathroom, scrubbing coffee off a urinal, while a man in a $2,000 suit stepped over him and said the name Marcus into a phone. "Wait," Daniel said. "Wait." They took Gerald Vance out the door. 8:45 in the morning, and Daniel turned around very slowly and looked down the length of that boardroom table at the only person still standing at the other end of it. "Ma'am," he said, "who's Marcus?" And Victoria Hayes did not answer him. 8:46, and Victoria Hayes still had not answered him. "Ma'am?" "Daniel, you know that name?" He came up the length of that table, and he did not care that there were 9 people still in the room. "You went white. I watched you go white." "Not here." He said, "Ask her about Marcus," and you went white. "Daniel not here." Harold Bishop, who had not moved from his chair, said quietly, "Victoria, who is Marcus?" And Daniel watched the most powerful woman in that city stand at the head of her own boardroom table and lose for 2 full seconds the ability to speak. "My brother," she said. 8:47. Nobody said anything. Somebody's phone buzzed on the table and they did not pick it up. "You don't have a brother," Harold said. "I have a brother, Harold." 19 years. 19 years, and you have never once. "I have an older brother," Victoria said, "and his name is Marcus Hayes, and he started this company in a garage in Tacoma in 2004 with $11,000 he took out of our mother's retirement account without telling her, and in 2009 I removed him from it." Harold sat back like somebody had pushed him. Daniel stood there with a dead wife's voice recorder in his hand and felt the whole world quietly rearrange itself. "You removed him," Harold said. "Yes." "How?" "The way you remove anybody," Victoria said. "I got the votes." "Victoria. He was using company accounts as a personal line of credit. He had 2 DUIs and an assault charge that got pled down, and a habit that cost about $9,000 a month. And in November of 2008, he came into the office at 2 in the afternoon and could not remember the name of our largest client." Her voice did not shake. That was somehow the worst part. "I was 24. I sat in a room with 4 investors, and I told them the truth, and they voted, and my brother lost his company on a Tuesday, and I signed the paper." 8:49. "So he's the one," a woman down the table said. "I don't know." "Victoria." "I said, I don't know." Victoria's hands were flat on the table. "I have not spoken to my brother in 11 years. I do not have a phone number. I get a card at Christmas with no return address and nothing written in it but my name." "That's not nothing," Harold said. "No," Victoria said. "It isn't." And Daniel very quietly said, "Ma'am, when did you know?" She turned. "What? When did you know it might be him?" Victoria did not answer. "Because you called those detectives at 7:15 this morning," Daniel said. "You had them standing in the hallway. You didn't tell me. You said I'd perform." He set the recorder down on the table very gently, which was worse than if he had slammed it. "So when did you know?" 8:51. "Thursday," Victoria said. Daniel closed his eyes. "Thursday when?" "Thursday night, in the garage." She swallowed. "When the big one said your name." "Explain that to me." "Because Gerald Vance is a coward," Victoria said. "Gerald Vance has never done anything in his life he couldn't undo. He'd have paid 4 men to scare me, and he'd have gone home and had a scotch and slept like a baby, and if it went wrong he'd have folded in an hour. Gerald doesn't hire men who look up a janitor's daughter." Her voice went flat. "Gerald doesn't hire men who escalate. So, Thursday night." "Thursday night, in that garage on the floor with a man's hand on my throat, I heard him say, 'Carter, you're early,' and I thought, that's not Gerald. That's somebody who plans." She looked at him. "And there is exactly one person alive who has ever wanted me dead and known how to plan." "And you didn't tell me." "No. You let me stand in a hallway at 9:20 on Thursday and beg you not to go to the garage," Daniel said. "And you told me to go home to Emma, and then 4 days later, you let me walk in here and put my daughter's name in the air in front of 14 people, And you never once said, Daniel, there might be somebody behind him. Daniel. You let me think it ended at Vance. It had to end at Vance, Victoria said. Today in this room it had to end at Vance, or it doesn't end at all. Why? Because Marcus doesn't own one share of this company, Victoria said. Not one. He can't be voted out. He can't be fired. He can't be investigated by a board. The only way anybody ever touches my brother is if the police get there first, and the police don't get there on a feeling. Her jaw set. So I gave them Gerald, because Gerald is the door. 8:54, and Daniel Carter looked at her for a very long time. You used me, he said. Yes. She said it without a flinch. Daniel had to give her that. She did not dress it up. I used you, Victoria said. I put a man with nothing in front of a room of people with everything. And I did it because you were the only thing in the world they couldn't explain away, and I would do it again this afternoon. Ma'am, I would do it again this afternoon. Daniel and I will be sorry about it for the rest of my life, and both of those are true at the same time. Her voice finally moved. That's what this job is. That's what nobody tells you. I have made 11,000 decisions, and I have never made one that was clean. Harold Bishop stood up. I want a full accounting, he said. Today, everything. Every share, every shell, every trust that's bought into this company since 2009. Victoria, do you have any idea? Meridian, Victoria said. Harold stopped dead. Wate, Meridian Trust, 4.1%. Came in over 18 months in blocks small enough to never trip a disclosure. She looked at him. I've been staring at that name since March, Harold. It's what was all over my floor the night Daniel came in with the trash. I couldn't find a human being behind it. 6 lawyers. 2 states. A Delaware entity that owns a Wyoming entity that owns a mailbox. You never brought it to the board. I brought it to Gerald, Victoria said. In April. 8:57, and the room made a sound. Not words. Just the sound a room makes. You brought a suspicious shareholder, Harold said slowly, to your chief financial officer. He's the CFO, Harold. Who else would I bring it to? And what did he say? He said he'd look into it, Victoria said. And then for 6 weeks, nothing. And then in June, my head of investor relations quit with no notice. And in July, somebody started meeting in a conference room on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:45 at night with a bag that blocks phones. She looked finally at Daniel. And a janitor saw a whiteboard in a vent. 9:02, and the older detective came back through the door with his phone against his chest. Ms. Hayes. Yes, Vance is talking. Every head turned. He's talking a lot, the detective said. He's talking so much my partner can't write it down. He's giving us a name for the call he made. He's giving us the burner he used. He's giving us dates. He is throwing everything he's got on the table, and he has not asked for a lawyer once. And Ms. Hayes, in 22 years, I have never seen anybody do that. Because he's not scared of you, Daniel said. The detective turned. Excuse me. He's not scared of you, Daniel said. He's scared of the other guy. That's why he's talking. He's not confessing, he's asking for a cell. 9:04, and the detective's face changed. Mr. Carter, I'm going to need you to come with me. Why? Because you're the only person alive who's seen the man in that garage, and Vance just told us that man's name, and I need you to look at a picture. 9/11 in a small room on the ground floor, and the detective put a phone in front of him. Daniel looked at it for about a second and a half. That's him. Take your time. Detective, I've been seeing that face every time I close my eyes for 4 days. Daniel slid the phone back. That's him. Gray jacket. That's the man who laughed. You're certain? I'm certain. The detective sat back. His name is Owen Brandt, he said. He's 46. He did 9 years at Coyote Ridge for aggravated assault, and he's been out since 2019, and for the last 5 of those years, he has been employed on the books W-2 taxes withheld as a driver. Daniel waited. For a man named Marcus Hayes, the detective said. 9:13. Daniel put both hands on the table. Where is he said. Mr. Carter. Where is Owen Brandt right now? We don't know. Where's Marcus Hayes right now? We don't. You don't know. Daniel came out of the chair. He called my house at 11:50 last night. You've got his voice on a recorder. You've got a name and a photo and a 9-year sentence and a W-2, and you don't know where he is. Mr. Carter, we got the name 11 minutes ago. Daniel stood there breathing. My daughter, he said. My daughter is in a blue house 40 minutes north with a 70-year-old woman and a dog that barks, and he knows that he told me. He knows that he said it to me on a phone. Sir, listen to me. The detective stood up too. We put a car on that address at 7:40 this morning. Before you ever walked into that boardroom, Ms. Hayes asked for it at 7:15, and I made the call myself. 9:15 and everything in Daniel's chest let go at once, and he had to put a hand on the wall. She did that, he said. She did that. Daniel Carter stood in a room with his hand flat against a wall and did not know what to feel, because the same woman who had used him had also at 7:15 in the morning, before anything before the room before the vote, made sure there was a police car outside a blue house 40 minutes north. Call them, he said. Sir, call the car, right now, while I'm standing here. The detective looked at him a second, and then, because he was a decent man who had done this for 22 years, he called. It rang. It rang 4 times. It went to a dispatch tone. 9:17, and the detective's face did something Daniel would remember until the day he died. That's not, the detective said. Hang on. He dialed again. 9:17 and 40 seconds. Dispatch, this is Reyes. I need a status on the unit at 412 Kesterling, over. Nothing. Dispatch. Reyes, stand by. I'm not standing by. I need a status. Reyes. The voice on the radio changed. It got careful. That was how Daniel knew. 20 years of watching people say things they did not want to say, and he knew it from one word. Unit's not responding. We've been trying since 9:06. 9:18. Daniel was already moving. Mr. Carter. He was through the door. Carter. Down the hall, past a woman with a coffee, past 2 men in suits who flattened against the wall. Carter, you get in my car. Daniel stopped so fast his shoes squealed on the floor. The detective caught up to him. You get in my car, Reyes said, because my car has lights on it and yours doesn't. And because if you drive yourself right now, you will be dead in a ditch on the interstate in 6 minutes, and you will be no good to that little girl at all. Are you hearing me? Daniel could not speak. Are you hearing me? Yeah, Daniel said. Say it. I'm hearing you. 9:20, and a woman's voice behind them said, I'm coming. They both turned. Victoria Hayes had her coat on and her keys in her fist and a bruise coming up purple on her throat. Ma'am, absolutely not, Reyes said. He's my brother. That is precisely why. Detective, in about 40 minutes you are going to be standing in a driveway trying to talk to a man who has never in his life been talked out of anything by a stranger. Victoria's voice was iron. I'm the only person on this earth he'll pick up the phone for. You don't have his number. No, Victoria said. But he has mine. 9:22, and they went out the side door of Hayes Technologies, and Daniel Carter got in the back of an unmarked Crown Victoria with the CEO of a $9 billion company sitting beside him, and neither of them said one word for the first 4 minutes. Then Victoria said, Daniel, don't. I need to say, ma'am, I've got about 180 seconds of air in me, and I need every one of it for my kid. His hands were shaking on his knees. You can say it later. If there's a later, you can say whatever you want, and I'll stand there and I'll listen to all of it, but not right now. Victoria closed her mouth. 9:29 doing 85 on the interstate, and Reyes's phone rang through the car speaker. Reyes. Go. Units up. Officers are up. Both of them. Daniel's head came back against the seat. They're not hurt. They're not hurt, Manny. Listen to me. Somebody boxed them at the end of the street at 8:50. Truck pulls out, blocks, the road driver gets out and starts screaming his brother's having a heart attack. They're out of the car 11 minutes. 11 minutes, and when they get back, radio's dead and both tires are flat and the guy and the truck are gone. Where's the house? Manny. Where is the house? Doors open, dispatch said. 9:31. Daniel made a sound. It was not a word. The old lady's alive, dispatch said fast. She's alive, she's talking, she's got a knot on her head the size of an egg, and she's fighting the EMTs and telling everybody to go get the kid. The kid? Reyes said. The kid's gone. The car went absolutely silent at 85 miles an hour. And then Victoria Hayes leaned forward and said in a voice Daniel had never heard from her and never heard again, "Turn this car around." "Ma'am." "Turn this car around. That house is empty. The house is bait. He's not there. He was never going to be there." "Ms. Hayes." "Think," Victoria shouted. "He didn't take a 7-year-old to hide her. He took a 7-year-old to make a phone call." 9:32, and Daniel Carter's phone lit up in his hand. Unknown number. The car went dead quiet. Daniel looked at the screen and could not make his thumb move. "Answer it," Reyes said. "Answer it and give it to me on speaker, and do not agree to anything." Daniel answered it, and the first thing he heard before any man's voice before anything was a small one. "Daddy," 9:32 and 40 seconds, and something in Daniel Carter's chest came apart. Emma Bug, I'm here." "Daddy, there's a man." I know, baby. Listen to me, listen to Daddy. Are you hurt?" "No." "Are you sure, Bug, are you?" "I'm not hurt." And then wobbling, "Mrs. Alvarez fell down." "I know. She fell down and she didn't get up and I was yelling at her. Emma, look at me. I know you can't, but look at me." Daniel's voice was absolutely impossibly steady, and Victoria Hayes turned her face to the window because she could not watch him do it. "She's okay. I promise you. Mrs. Alvarez is talking right now, and she is yelling at doctors, and she is telling everybody to go get you. Okay, she's tough. You know she's tough. She's real tough. She's the toughest lady I know. Now where are you?" "In a truck." "Good. That's good, Bug. What color's the truck?" And then the phone changed hands. "That's enough of that." 9:34. "Brant," Daniel said. A pause on the line, a long one. "Huh," Owen Brant said. "They told you my name." "They told me a lot of things. Yeah, Gerald's got a mouth on him." Something rustled. "Dan, I want you to know something, and I want you to actually hear it, because you're going to have about 90 seconds of being a person before you go back to being a father. Are you listening?" "I'm listening." "This wasn't the plan. Not this. I don't do kids." "You're doing one right now." "Yeah," Brant said. "I am." And there was something in his voice that made the hair stand up on Daniel's arms, because it was not triumph. It was tired. "He called me at 4 this morning, Brant said. "Told me you played a tape in a boardroom. Told me to go get leverage, and I said no. You want to know something funny? Dan? I said no. I've said no to that man exactly one time in 5 years, and it was this morning at 4:15 in the morning." "Then what are you doing in a truck with my daughter?" "Because he sent somebody else," Brant said. "And I got there first." 9:36. The car swerved. "Say that again," Reyes said. "Who's that?" "That's a detective," Daniel said. "Say it again." Silence on the line. 4 seconds of it. Daniel counted them. "There were 2 trucks on that street this morning," Brant said. "Mine and one other. And the other one wasn't there for a phone call." "You're lying." "Yeah, probably," Brant said. "I lie a lot. Ask anybody." "Brant." "Dan!" And the man's voice dropped and got very flat and very fast. "I put a hand on your CEO's throat. I did that. I stood in a garage and I laughed at you. So don't go making me a good guy because I'm not. And I'm gonna be in a room for the rest of my life over this. and I've made my peace with it in about the last 4 hours. Where is my daughter? She's eating a bag of pretzels, and she's asked me 11 questions about the radio. Daniel put his fist against his mouth. Here's what happens now, Brant said. There's a Presbyterian church at the corner of 9th and Ellison. Not the big one. The little one with the busted sign. There's a lot behind it. I'm going to be in that lot in 22 minutes, and I'm going to have your kid, and I'm going to have my hands where everybody can see them, and detective whoever you are, you can bring the whole department, and I'm not going to do one thing about it. Why? Daniel said. Why what? Why are you doing this? 9:38. Because you asked me to say her name, Brant said. Nobody in that car breathed. On the phone, Sunday night. You said say her name and I couldn't do it. A sound, half a laugh, all wrong. 9 years inside Dan. 9. And a guy in a gray uniform on a phone said 4 words, and I sat in my truck for an hour. The line clicked. 22 minutes, Brant said. 9th and Ellison. And he hung up. 9:39 and Reyes was already on the radio, and Victoria was already on her phone, and Daniel Carter sat in the back of a police car doing 90, with his daughter's voice still in his ear saying, Daddy, there's a man. 9:52, and they came into that lot with 4 cruisers and no sirens, and Owen Brant was standing outside a gray pickup with both hands on the roof and his back to everybody, and a 7-year-old girl sitting on the tailgate holding a bag of pretzels and a plastic dinosaur. Daniel was out of the car before it stopped. Emma. She hit him at a dead run, and he went down on both knees on the asphalt, and it did not matter. None of it mattered, and he held his daughter with both arms, and put his face in her hair, and made a noise that 70 people heard, and not one of them ever repeated. Daddy, you're squishing me. I know. Daddy. I know, Bug. Give me a second. You came, Emma said. Daniel could not answer. You always come, she said into his shoulder. Matter of fact, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like it was arithmetic, and Daniel Carter knelt in a church parking lot at 9:53 in the morning and finally broke. 9:58, and they cuffed Owen Brant, and he did not say a word, and he did not look at Daniel once, until he was at the car door. Carter? Daniel turned around with his daughter in his arms. 9th and Ellison, Brant said. You ever wonder why I picked here? Daniel said nothing. Because I could have been in Idaho by noon, Brant said. That was the other option. I sat in that truck this morning with a kid in the back, and I had both options, and I want you to know I thought about it for a long time. Why'd you pick this one? Brant looked at him. Because my old man was a janitor, he said. 31 years, Bethel Steel, and every day of my life I watched people walk past him like he was a wall. He got in the car. You're the first one I ever saw who didn't get small about it. The door shut. 10:14 in the back of an ambulance with Emma wrapped in a blanket she did not need and drinking apple juice out of a box. Victoria Hayes stood at the open doors and did not come in. Ma'am, Daniel said, you can come in. I don't think I can. Victoria? She looked up at her name. Get in the ambulance, Daniel said. And she did. Emma studied her for about 4 seconds with her mother's eyes. Are you the lady? Emma said. Victoria blinked. The what? The lady who says thank you. And Victoria Hayes, 41 years old, who had taken a company from $400 million to $9 billion, who had sat across from senators, put a hand over her mouth in the back of an ambulance and could not get one word out. That's her bug, Daniel said quietly. Okay, Emma said, and went back to her juice, because she was 7. 10:21, and Reyes climbed in with his phone in his hand, and his face was gray. Ms. Hayes? Yes. Brant's giving it up, all of it. He's giving us the 4 a.m. call, he's giving us the account the money moved through, he's giving us Meridian. Reyes swallowed. He's giving us your brother. Good, Victoria said. Ma'am, that's not why I'm here. Daniel looked up. There was a second truck on Kesterling this morning, Reyes said. Brant wasn't lying. We've got it on a ring camera 4 houses down at 841. Nobody moved. "And ma'am," Reyes said, "we ran the plate. 1022. "It's a company vehicle," Reyes said. "It's registered to Hayes Technologies." 1022, and nobody in that ambulance moved. "Say it again," Victoria said. "The plate comes back to a fleet vehicle," Reyes said. "Facilities Department, Hayes Technologies, 2019 Silverado Gray Unit number 411. "That's a work truck." "Yes, ma'am." "That's a truck that hauls floor buffers." "Yes, ma'am." And Daniel Carter, sitting in the back of an ambulance with his daughter against his chest, said one word. "Ray." Reyes turned. "What?" "411's Ray's truck," Daniel said. "Ray Delgado, night supervisor. He's had that truck 4 years. Nobody else touches it because he's got a thing about the seat." "Mr. Carter, are you certain?" "Detective, I have loaded that truck 100 times. Daniel's voice had gone very quiet. "The tailgate sticks. You've got to lift it and drop it." 1024, and Victoria was already on her phone. "Marla, pull the fleet log for Unit 411. Every key draw for the last 72 hours. I don't care, wake him up. Now." Emma looked up from her juice box. "Daddy, why is everybody yelling?" "They're not yelling bug. They're yelling." "Yeah," Daniel said. "They're yelling." 1027, and Victoria's phone buzzed, and she read it, and Daniel watched her face and knew before she said anything. "Key was drawn Sunday night," she said. 11:40, by Raymond Delgado. "Sunday night," Daniel repeated. 11:40. Daniel did the arithmetic, and it made him sick. "He called me at 11:50, he said. "Brant, Sunday, 11:50. He put his chin on Emma's head. "Ray pulled that truck 10 minutes before." 1029, and Reyes was outside the ambulance, now talking fast and low into his radio, and Victoria sat down on the bench across from Daniel and put her hands flat on her knees like she was holding the floor down. "Daniel? Don't. He was your supervisor. He was my friend," Daniel said, and the word came out of him like something torn. 3 years. That man came to my wife's funeral. He drove 40 minutes in the rain, and he stood in the back, and he didn't say anything, and he left, and I found out later he covered my shifts for 2 weeks, and told the company I'd used PTO I didn't have. Victoria said nothing. "He gave the cops my file Friday, and his voice broke," Daniel said. "I heard it. I thought that was guilt about the file." "Daniel, it wasn't about the file." 1034, and Reyes stuck his head back in. "Mr. Carter, where does Delgado live?" 1420 Aldridge, 2nd floor. There's a green awning." "You've been there." "Every Christmas," Daniel said. Reyes was gone. 1051, in a hospital hallway, and a nurse was trying to take Emma's blood pressure, and Emma was explaining to her at length that the T-Rex needed to go first. Daniel stood 8 feet away with his back against a wall and his phone in his hand, and could not make himself do the thing he was about to do. "Ma'am," he said. Victoria came over. "I'm going to call him." "Daniel, no." "Ma'am, you cannot call a suspect, the detective will." "He's not a suspect," Daniel said. "He's a scared 58-year-old man with a bad knee and a daughter in Reno, and if the police kick his door in, he's going to do something stupid, and I've known him 3 years, and I am telling you he will do something stupid." Victoria looked at him for a long second. "Put it on speaker," she said. 1053. It rang once. "Danny?" Ray Delgado's voice. Daniel closed his eyes. "Ray, is she okay?" It came out fast, all at once, like it had been sitting behind his teeth for 2 hours. "Danny, is she okay? Is Emma okay? Just tell me that. Just tell me." "She's okay." And a 58-year-old man made a sound on the other end of that phone that Daniel Carter would hear for the rest of his life. "Oh God. Oh God, Danny. Oh God." "Ray. Ray, listen to me. I didn't know." "Ray, I didn't know," Ray shouted, and it broke in the middle. He said it was papers. He said drive down the street park, and if a guy comes out with a box, you take the box to a mailbox place on Kenmore. That's it. That's all. He said papers, Danny. He said, who's he? Silence. Ray? Who's he? I can't. Ray. You don't understand what he's got on me. 10:55 and Daniel Carter did the hardest thing he did that entire week, which was not the garage and was not the boardroom. He softened his voice. Ray, he said, it's the 22,000, isn't it? The line went absolutely still. How? Because you've been buying the same coffee for 3 years and last spring you started bringing it from home, Daniel said. Because you took every double they'd give you and you still looked like a man drowning. Because in February you asked me if I knew anybody who'd buy a boat. He paused. Because I've been where you are, Ray, and it's got a look, and you've had it since April. Ray was crying. He was not hiding it. My sister's kid, he said. The surgery. I signed a thing. I didn't read the thing. Danny, I'm 58 years old, and I signed a thing I didn't read. And now I owe a man in an office park $22,000, and it goes up every month no matter what I put on it. And somebody bought it. Yeah. Somebody walked into your life and bought your debt and told you it was gone. He said it was gone, Ray whispered. He said, Ray, it's gone. It's just gone. And all I ever want from you is you keep me company sometimes. That's what he said. Keep me company. 10:58. Ray, Daniel said. Say his name. Danny. Say his name. He'll... Ray Delgado. Daniel's voice did not rise. It did the opposite. You watched a man take my 7-year-old daughter off a porch this morning. I didn't watch. I was at the end of the street. I didn't. You were there. Silence. You were there, Daniel said, and Mrs. Alvarez is upstairs in this hospital with 11 staples in her head, and she's 71, and she yelled at 4 EMTs to go get my kid instead of getting on the gurney. So you say his name, Ray. You say it right now, and then you go sit on your porch, and you wait for the police with your hands empty, and you don't do one stupid thing, because I have already buried one person I loved, and I am not doing another one this week. The line breathed for 11 seconds. Marcus, Ray said. Marcus Hayes. Victoria did not move. Daniel watched her not move, which was somehow worse than if she had screamed. Where is he? Daniel said. I don't know. Danny, I swear on my mother. Ray? He never tells anybody where he is. That's the whole point of him. And then Ray stopped. Wait. What? He asked me something. 2 weeks ago. It was so stupid I didn't even... What did he ask you? He asked me which floors you did, Ray said. 11:02 and Daniel Carter's blood stopped moving. Say that again. He asked which floors Carter did, and I said 31 to 38, and he said, does he do her office? And I said, yeah, and he said... Ray's voice was shaking apart. He said, what's she like at night? Ray? He said, does she stay late? Does she sit on the floor? She used to sit on the floor. 11:03, and Victoria Hayes turned and walked 6 steps down that hospital hallway and put one hand on the wall. Ray, when did he ask you that? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago is before any of it. I know. 2 weeks ago is before the garage, before the whiteboard, that's before everything. I know, Ray said. Danny, that's what I'm telling you. He wasn't asking about you. He was asking about her. He's been asking about her for months. The garage that was Vance's thing, Vance is a clown. Vance was never... He stopped. He got himself back. Vance thought he was running something. Marcus let him think it. Marcus has been sitting in the dark on that woman for 2 years. 11:05. Ray, Daniel said. Go sit on your porch. Danny, sit on your porch. Hands empty. Tell them everything. Everything, Ray, all the way down. Daniel's throat closed. And Ray, when this is over, call me. Why? Because you drove 40 minutes in the rain to stand in the back at my wife's funeral, and you never told me you did it. Daniel said. And I'm not going to be the kind of man who forgets that just because the last part's easier. He hung up. Victoria was still facing the wall. He asked if I sit on the floor, she said. Ma'am, nobody knows that. Her voice was flat and strange. Nobody in that building knows that. I do it when it's bad. I've done it since I was 22. It's the only thing I have that's just mine. And I do it in a glass box on the 38th floor of a building with my name on it, and nobody knows that. Daniel said very quietly, I know it. Victoria turned around. And Marcus knows it, she said, because I learned it from him. 11:07. He used to do it, she said. In Tacoma, in the garage. He'd sit on the concrete with the whole business spread out around him because he said, you can't see a problem from above. You have to get down where it lives. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist one time fast. I stole it from my brother when I was 19 years old, and I have done it every bad night for 22 years, and he knows. Ma'am, he's not coming for the company, Daniel. Her eyes came up. He's coming for the room. 11:11, and Daniel Carter was moving. Reyes. Sir. Reyes, get your car. Mr. Carter. He's in the building, Daniel said. Reyes stopped dead in the middle of the hallway. What? Right now. He is in that building right now, and there is nobody in it because it's Monday morning, and every executive in that tower is in a police station or a lawyer's office, and the CFO's in cuffs, and the head of facilities is sitting on his porch, and the CEO is in a hospital. Daniel's voice had gone hard as a nail. Detective, in 11 months, I have never seen that building empty. Not once, not one day. It's empty right now. Sir, we have officers. You have officers here, Daniel said. And at Ray's, and on Kesterling, and at a church on 9th. Every single body you've got is spread across 40 miles of this county chasing things that already happened. 11:12 and Reyes's face changed. Because he made us spread out, Reyes said. Because he made you spread out. 11:13. What does he want in an empty building? Reyes said. And Victoria Hayes, standing in a hospital hallway with a bruise on her throat, said, Meridian. They both turned. 4.1%, she said. Bought in blocks small enough to never trip a disclosure. 6 lawyers, 2 states, a Delaware entity that owns a Wyoming entity that owns a mailbox. She was already walking. It's not enough to do anything with. It never was. It was never about the shares. Then what? It's about the paper, Victoria said. Do you understand? Every share he bought, every transfer, every signature, all of it runs through this company's transfer agent, and every original sits in a records room on the 4th floor of my building. Physical, paper. Because we're a 19-year-old company and half our early cap table was signed in a garage with a pen. 11:15. He's not stealing it, Reyes said slowly. No, Victoria said. He's fixing it. Daniel got it about a half second before the detective did, and it went through him like ice water. He's putting himself back in, Daniel said. Victoria stopped walking. 19 years, she said. He's going to reach into the only place on earth where the original 2004 incorporation documents live, and he's going to make it so that when this is all over and Gerald Vance is in prison and I am the woman who got her own boardroom shot at, there is a piece of paper in a vault that says Marcus Hayes never left. Ma'am, that's insane, ma'am. He's not sane, Daniel, Victoria said. That's the part everybody keeps getting wrong. My brother isn't a criminal mastermind. My brother is a 53-year-old man who has spent 11 years telling himself one story. And the story is that his little sister stole his life while he was sick, and he has never once been told he's wrong because I have never picked up the phone. 11:18, and they were in the car. 11:31, and they came into the plaza of Hayes Technologies with no lights and no sirens, and there were 2 officers on the lobby door in 90 seconds, and Reyes turned around in the driver's seat. Mr. Carter, you stay in the car. Detective, you stay in the car, and Ms. Hayes, you stay in the car, and I want you both to hear me say this out loud, so nobody's confused. There is a man in that building who has one warrant and nothing to lose, and the two of you are the only people in this county he wants to see. Am I clear? You don't know the 4th floor, Daniel said. I've got a map. You've got a map, Daniel said. Detective, the records room on 4 has 3 doors. The one on the map, the one they built when they moved the server room in 2017, and the one behind the janitor's closet that they drywalled over, except they didn't. They hung a sheet of ply and put a coat hook on it, and every custodian in this building has used it for 6 years because it saves 11 steps. Reyes stared at him. There's a door that isn't on the map, he said. There's 4 of them, Daniel said. In this building, there's a lot of things not on the map. 11:33. You walk behind me, Reyes said. You touch nothing. You say nothing. And if I put my hand up, you stop like you hit a wall. Yes, sir. Ms. Hayes, absolutely not. Detective. Ma'am, 4 days ago, a man put his hand on your throat. You are not going in there. And Victoria Hayes looked at him and said, Then who's going to talk to him? 1141 4th floor, and the records room door was open. Not forced. Open. 1142, and there was a man sitting on the floor. He was 53. He had gray in his beard and a canvas jacket and reading glasses pushed up on his head, and he was sitting cross-legged on the carpet with about 900 pages spread out around him in a half-circle, sorted, squared, alphabetized, and he had a pen behind his ear. He looked up. Vic, Marcus Hayes said. Nobody breathed. Hey, Vic. Marcus? I found the originals. He held up a page. You know they're not even in a vault. They're in a box. 19 years and $9 billion, and the incorporation docs are in a banker's box with a rubber band. Marcus put it down. You always said we'd fix that. He put the page down very carefully in a stack. 2006. You said, Marcus, one of these days somebody's going to spill a Coke on our whole life. 1143, and Reyes's voice was flat and calm. Sir, I need to see your hands. They're right here. Sir. Buddy, look at me. Marcus held both hands up empty and smiled, and there was nothing in it at all. I don't have anything. I've never had anything. That's kind of the whole deal. Then stand up. In a minute. Sir. I said in a minute. 1144. Vic. Marcus said, You want to know something funny? Marcus. 11 years. I know. 11 years, and I sent a card every Christmas. I know. And you never wrote back. Victoria's mouth moved, and nothing came out. Not once, Marcus said. He was still smiling. That was the terrible part. Not one time. And I'd sit there in December every year like a sucker Vic, like a total sucker checking a P.O. box like a kid, and I'd think this year she'll write 4 words, any 4 words. She could have written, Go to hell, Marcus. I'd have framed it. You didn't put a return address. I know. How was I supposed to? I know, Marcus said, and it came out of him like a gunshot, and Reyes's hand moved and Daniel's heart stopped, and Marcus did not get up. I know. I know I didn't, because I was ashamed. Because I have been ashamed for 11 years, and the only thing that ever made it quiet was deciding it was your fault. 1146. Marcus. Victoria said, You sent men to hurt me. No. There was a man's hand on my throat. That was Vance. He said it fast dismissive like he was swatting a fly. Vance is a worm Vic Vance has been eating out of my hand for 2 years, and he doesn't even know he's been eating, and he did that on his own, and I want you to know I was sick about it. You sent a man to my house, Daniel said. Marcus turned his head and looked at Daniel Carter for the first time. Who's this? He said. 1147, and Daniel felt something go through him that was not fear. It was older than fear, and it was a lot worse. You don't know who I am, he said. Should I? You had my picture printed out, Daniel said. You had my shift highlighted in yellow. You called Ray Delgado 2 weeks ago and asked him which floors I did. He took 1 step, You put a man on a phone at 11:50 on a Sunday night to talk about my daughter. Marcus's face did something. You're the janitor, he said. Yes. Huh. Marcus looked him up and down, and then he laughed one short bark of it and shook his head. Nobody told me you were big. Marcus, Victoria said. I'm just saying. Marcus, look at me. Victoria's voice cracked down the middle of that room. You took a 7-year-old off a porch. That wasn't. You took a child. That was Brant. Brant works for you. 11:49. And Marcus Hayes stopped smiling. Not anymore, he said. Apparently. Nobody moved. He called me, Marcus said. 9 o'clock this morning. Said, Marcus, I'm out. Said, I'm taking her to a church. And I said, Owen, buddy, you do that and you're done. And he said... Marcus stopped. His jaw worked. He said my old man was a janitor. He looked up at Daniel. What in the hell did you say to him? I asked him to say my daughter's name, Daniel said. That's it. That's it. That's not. It's enough, Daniel said. That's what none of you ever get. It's always enough. 11:51. Marcus, Victoria said. Stand up, please. I'm not done. You are. I'm not done, Vic. I've got 200 pages left, and I have to get to 2009. I have to get to the transfer, because if I can find the original transfer, then everybody will see. They'll all see what you... Marcus. They'll see what you did to me. 11:52, and the room went very, very still, and Reyes's hand was on his weapon, and had not left it in 9 minutes. And Victoria Hayes did the only thing that was ever going to work. She sat down on the floor. Reyes said, ma'am, and she put a hand up and did not look at him, and she lowered herself onto that carpet 6 feet from her brother and crossed her legs and put her hands in her lap. Okay, she said. Tell me. Marcus stared at her. What? Tell me what I did, Victoria said. You've had 11 years. I've had 11 years of not answering, so go ahead. I'm on the floor. I'm not going anywhere. Tell me. 11:54, and Marcus Hayes opened his mouth and nothing came out. You were 24, he said finally. Yes. You were 24 years old, and you sat in a room with Kessler and Bergman, and you told them I was an addict. Yes. In front of strangers, Vic. Yes. You could have come to me. I came to you 11 times, Victoria said. I came to you in your apartment, and I came to you in a parking lot, and I came to you at Mom's on Thanksgiving, and I sat on the edge of your bathtub at 2 a.m. while you told me you had it handled. Her voice did not rise. Marcus, you could not remember the name of Vantage, our biggest client. You'd had dinner with the man 9 days earlier, and you called him Victor. That was one time. It was not one time. Vic, it was not one time, and you know it was not one time, and that's why you never wrote a return address. 11:56, and something happened to Marcus Hayes's face that made Daniel Carter look away. I built it, Marcus whispered. Yes, Victoria said. You did. He looked up sharply. You did, she said again. Marcus, you built it. $11,000 out of Mom's account, and a garage with no heat, and you built it, and I have never once said otherwise, not in 19 years, not to a reporter, not to a board, not to anybody. Ask Harold, ask anybody. Every time somebody calls me a founder, I correct them. That's not. There is a photograph in the lobby of this building, Victoria said. Ground floor, 12 feet from the door. 19 people have asked me to take it down over 19 years, and I have said no 19 times, and it's you, Marcus. It's you in a folding chair in Tacoma in 2004 with a screwdriver in your teeth. 11:58. Marcus Hayes made a sound. It's still up, he said. It's still up. You never took it down. I never took it down. And a 53-year-old man sat on the floor of a records room surrounded by 900 pages of a life he'd lost and folded forward, and put his face in his hands and came apart. 11:59 and Reyes moved, and Daniel put a hand on his arm. "Give him 10 seconds, Daniel said. "Mr. Carter." "Detective." Daniel did not let go. 10 seconds. He's not going anywhere. Look at him. Reyes looked at him and gave him 10 seconds. 12 noon, and Marcus Hayes lifted his head and wiped his face with his sleeve like a kid. "I'm gonna go to prison," he said. "Yes," Victoria said. "For a long time." "Probably." "Okay," Marcus said. And he stood up, slowly, hands out. And he turned around before anybody asked him to, and Reyes had the cuffs on him in 4 seconds, and Marcus Hayes did not say one word about it. 12:02 at the door, he stopped. "Vic." Victoria was still on the floor. "You gonna write back?" And Victoria Hayes, who had not answered a Christmas card in 11 years, said, "Every week. And you're going to read them, and you're going to hate most of them, and I'm going to send the next one anyway." Marcus almost laughed. "That sounds about right," he said. 12:04 they took him out. 12:09 and Daniel Carter sat down on the floor of that records room across from the CEO of a $9 billion company because his legs had simply quit, and neither of them said anything for a long time. "Ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am." "Victoria." "Yeah." "You did that on purpose." "The floor." "Yes." "And the photograph in the lobby." Victoria closed her eyes. "No," she said. "That one's just true." The arrests took 4 days and the paperwork took 14 months. Gerald Vance took 11 years. He never went to trial. He walked into a room with a lawyer he'd known since law school and gave up every name he had. And it did not save him one day, and the last thing he said in that courtroom was that he'd never meant for anyone to get hurt. And the judge looked at him for a long moment and said, "Nobody ever does, Mr. Vance. That's why we have prisons instead of apologies." Owen Brandt took 9. He pled to everything. He never asked for a deal, and his lawyer nearly quit over it. When the prosecutor offered to take the kidnapping down to unlawful restraint because of the church lot, Brandt said no, and when the man asked him why, Brandt said, "Because I put a kid in a truck." And that was the whole conversation. Marcus Hayes took 15. His sister was in this gallery. Both days. Front row. She did not miss 1 hour, and when they took him out, he looked back at her, and she was still there, and that is how it went for the next 11 years. Ray Delgado took a year and served 8 months. Daniel Carter drove 90 minutes each way once a month the entire time. Nobody ever asked him why. If they had, he'd have said because a man drove 40 minutes in the rain to stand in the back of a funeral, and never told anybody. 2 weeks after it ended, Victoria Hayes stood up in front of 900 employees in the atrium of her own building with a bruise still faintly yellow on her throat, and did the thing that Daniel had begged her not to do. On October 9th, she said, "4 men were waiting for me in our garage. Nobody in this company came. Nobody knew. I have spent 2 weeks reading incident reports, and I want to tell you the truth about all of it, and the truth is this. The man who came was the only person in this building that none of us could name." 900 people turned around. Daniel Carter was standing in the back, in a gray uniform with a cart. "His name is Daniel Carter," Victoria said. "He has worked here 11 months. He has a daughter named Emma who is 7. In 11 months, 4 people in this company had said thank you to him, and I was one of them, and I'm not proud of that. I'm ashamed of it, because being one of 4 is not a good number. It's a damning one." Nobody made a sound. "He saw what all of us walked past," she said, "because he was the only one who was ever looking." And 900 people stood up. It went on for 6 minutes. Daniel would tell you later it was the single worst experience of his adult life, and he'd mean it, and he'd also be lying a little, and both of those were true. They offered him the world. That was the part nobody believed afterward. There was a check with a number on it that would have paid off $41,000 in medical debt 11 times over and bought a house with a porch light that worked. There was a morning show. There was a man from Los Angeles who used the word franchise. Daniel said no to all of it. "Why?" Victoria said. They were in her office. He was emptying the trash. Some things had not changed, and both of them liked it that way. Because if I take it, then that's why I did it, Daniel said. And that's not why I did it. That's not how anybody will read it. I don't care how anybody reads it. I care how she reads it. He tied off the bag. She's 7. In about 9 years, she's going to be 16, and she's going to be standing in a hallway somewhere, and somebody's going to be getting hurt, and she's going to have about 2 seconds to decide what kind of person she is, and I need her to already know. Victoria sat back. Know what? That you don't do it for a check, Daniel said. You do it because somebody's in trouble. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's not complicated, ma'am. It's just hard, and everybody in the world confuses those two. He took the security job. Not the one she offered. She offered him director. He said no to that too. He took a shift. Nights. Level 3 desk, the same desk, with the little TV, because somebody had to sit at it, and Daniel Carter had opinions about what happens when nobody does. He was home at 6:30 every morning. He made pancakes. He walked his daughter to the bus. Victoria Hayes changed the company, and she did it the way real things get changed, which is slowly and boringly, and with a lot of meetings. Custodial went in-house with benefits. Every badge in the building got a name printed on it in letters big enough to read from 6 feet, and it was not optional. And 2 vice presidents complained, and one of them does not work there anymore. And every new hire on day 1 for the last 9 years has walked past a photograph in the lobby 12 feet from the door. A man in a folding chair in a garage in Tacoma with a screwdriver in his teeth. And next to it, now, a second one. A gray uniform. A cart. The plaque under it doesn't say hero. Daniel wouldn't let them. It says he was looking. Emma Carter is 16 now. She's a junior. She wants to be a nurse like her mother, and she has her mother's eyes, and her father still cannot win an argument with either of them. Last spring she came home late and quiet and would not say why, and Daniel found out 4 days later from another kid's mother that his daughter had stood up in a cafeteria in front of 200 people and put herself between a freshman and 3 seniors and had not told a single soul about it. He asked her about it that night standing in her doorway. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma shrugged. "You don't tell people," she said. "You just come." And Daniel Carter stood in a hallway in a house with a porch light that finally worked and understood that the whole thing, all of it, the garage and the vent and the boardroom and the church lot and every hour of the worst year of his life had been worth exactly this one sentence. Because that's the truth. Nobody in that tower ever figured out. And the truth every one of them walked past for 11 months. Greatness never wore a title. It carried a mop. It worked nights. It made pancakes at